Alrighty, with everything thought of regarding the actual form and the fields we're building, let's go ahead and start building this out. Since these things are all highly related, and a form field is only going to happen within a form in this context, I'm going to put everything inside of a form directory. Inside of this form directory, we're going to have a form.js, and we're also going to have an index.js. So following that same process, I'm going to export default. I'm going to go to form.js. I'm going to export default a function that just returns null, which is a valid React component. Then from our index.js, I'm going to import form from ./form, and then I'll say export form. And then we can go ahead and start actually setting up the stories for this. So going back into our stories directory, we're going to go ahead and create a form.stories.js. Once again in here, we're going to import React. We're going to import view and text from React Native. We'll import stories from @Storybook React Native, and then we'll import action from @Storybook add-on actions. I'm also going to go ahead and import the buffer view from our decorators file, and then we'll import the form from ./components/form. Okay, all of that boilerplate out of the way, let's go ahead and define that story. So I'll say stories of form. I'll pass the module, and then here we'll go ahead, add that decorator of buffer view. This will add it for all of the stories we have. So I can then add our default case for the form, which will just be a form that has a view inside of it, and we'll add some styles to it. So I'll say the style is flex1, just so it takes up the full amount of the screen. We'll also give it a background color of E6, E6. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and then we're also going to have a case where it has a header. We'll say with header. And that'll be a prop that's being passed. So we can just say hello. And then let's copy this one, and we'll say with header and subheader. So here we can go ahead, add that other prop equals welcome back. Kindly enter your login details. Okay, so I'll save this, and then if we go back to our Storybook server, which is running, refresh this, it's not showing up. And if you remember back to that autoloader lesson, what we need to do is basically restart our Storybook server so it goes ahead and generates or updates our imports here. Now if I refresh this, refresh the actual app, we can see the form showing up. And we've got our different cases here, but nothing's showing up. So like before, we've kind of defined this API through our stories. Now we can go ahead and build it up so that it actually goes ahead and does everything we want it to. So to start, I'm going to go ahead and import React. I'm going to import view, style sheet, and text from React Native. I'll go ahead and import the colors file again. We'll go ahead, create our styles object. Okay, now we can actually start building this thing out. So what props did we have? Well, if we go back to our stories, we can see we've got the children, which is going to be the content. We've got a header and a subheader. So we can go ahead, add these in here. We've got children, header, subheader. We're going to have a view that wraps everything. And then we know we're going to return our children in here. We'll also add a style in here. We're going to call this styles.container. And basically what this is going to do is, if you remember back to that demo GIF that I showed you, is it's going to give a bit of padding on the sides and just make sure we take up the entire content. So we'll say margin horizontal is going to be 20, and then we'll also give it a flex1 property. So now when we save this, we should be seeing the actual gray background here. So let's open up our Storybook file, go through here and nothing's showing up. Why could that be? So we've got the right story selected. Let's go ahead, change this to red, which is a little more harsh, but we'll know it's there. So it's not rendering. We've got our form. Let's get rid of these, see what happens. Let's define a height of 200. Oh, okay. And if we look at my styles, we can see what's going on here. I didn't actually define this container property. I was just adding it in here. So never stop making mistakes. All right, so we'll add this back in here. Let's save this. All right, we can see the content. Let's use our actual styles again. Looking good. And this additional padding or margin on the sides is just coming from Storybook in our buffer view. So I'm going to go ahead and change this back to our little bit less obnoxious color. So we can see basically this is where the form fields will be showing up. This is the stories or the content of the field. So we know our default case is set up. Let's go ahead and switch over to with header. And in here, what we're going to do is actually cut this out. So what we're going to do here is view. Basically, we're going to have a top row, and this top row is going to contain our header, which is going to be wrapped in text. We're only going to display this if the header exists, and let's see what happens. Okay, so this is that case. If we go back to here, that's all looking good. Let's go ahead and create some styles for this. So we'll call this style is equal to styles dot header text. Our header text is going to have a color of colors dot primary. We'll have a font weight of 600, font size of 32, and a margin bottom of 12. All right, save this. Excellent, excellent. Now, something we do want to add here is we're going to want to make sure that there is some padding on the bottom, even if there isn't a subheader. So what we'll do, and that's where this top row style comes in, go ahead, add top row, and we're going to add a margin bottom of 28. Okay, cool. So we've got that necessary spacing, that we kind of exist. If we go back, I'd like to go back to my default. Okay, and we can see that even when we don't have our header, so when we just have our default, we still have this top header showing up, which we don't want. So what I'm going to do is actually say if header or subheader, if either one of these are true, so I'm going to wrap this in parentheses. If either one of those are true, then we'll render that top header, or top row rather. So if we go back to here, change it to header, all right, we can see we've got that padding showing up. And now we need to do our subheader of actually displaying that. So I'll just copy the header, change up this to subheader, and then we'll have a subheader text style. And we can add that up here. And all this is going to be is colors.gray, font size of 20, and then a margin bottom of 12. Change this to a singular color. Okay, so we've got this. We're showing our title, our header, subheader, and then the actual contents that are passed to the component. So we've got default, header, subheader. Everything's looking to me, it's working the way I expect it to. So our wrapper form component is all set up and ready to go.